Sleep Ship Archive. Transmission initiated. Vessel status stable. All primary systems nominal. Cryosleep monitoring nominal. Archive integrity confirmed. Voyage year 214. Tonight's record comes from the Agricultural Archives of Old Earth. The subject: hydroponic agriculture, what it was and what it proved. A plant does not know whether its roots are in soil or in water. It cannot know. The biology makes no distinction. What the root requires, it requires. And if the water carries what soil once carried, the root absorbs it the same way. The growth proceeds, the leaf expands, life continues. This record is about that indifference and what was built from it. This record is preserved for the colonists aboard this vessel, for those who will tend the growth chambers, who will watch the roots in their trays and know that what continues in water continued in soil for 3 billion years before it. The living things aboard this vessel do not know the difference. You do. That is what this record is for. You may rest now. The archive will do the work of the night. A leaf is a surface. From above, a thin plane of green, matte and slightly waxy, oriented toward the light source. The surface is not smooth at the scale of the cell. It is a landscape of interlocking cells, each one a pressurized container of water and pigment and the molecular machinery of photosynthesis. The whole leaf surface is under slight pressure from within. A plant that is properly watered holds its leaves taut against themselves. The cells full of water, pressing outward, giving the leaf its form and firmness. This is turgor. The leaf stands because it is full. When a plant is underwatered, it is this internal pressure that fails first. The cells lose their turgidity, the leaf loses its stiffness, the stem bends, the plant wilts. What looks like a structural failure is a hydraulic one. Touch it. The surface is cool, slightly cooler than the air around it, because the leaf is releasing water vapor through the pores on its underside. The stomata, small openings that can open and close in response to light and humidity and the carbon dioxide concentration of the surrounding air. The leaf breathes through these openings, taking in carbon dioxide, releasing oxygen and water vapor. When the stomata are open and the air is warm and dry, the evaporation from the leaf surface draws up water from the stem below, which draws water from the roots, which draws water from whatever medium the roots are in. The leaf is the reason water moves, not the root pulling, the leaf evaporating. The continuous loss of water from the leaf surface creates a tension in the water column inside the plant, a continuous pull from above, drawing water upward through the stem in narrow channels from the root to the leaf, driven entirely by evaporation at the top. The root does not pump. The leaf does not pump. Water moves because it is being lost at the top, and the column behind it follows. In a tall tree, this tension lifts water 30, 50, sometimes more than 100 meters, against gravity, through narrow channels, driven by nothing more than the continuous departure of water molecules from leaf surfaces into air. There is also the smell, the particular smell of growing plants in an enclosed space. The combination of volatile organic compounds released through the stomata, the moisture in the air from transpiration, the faint organic signature of root activity in solution below. Not the outdoor smell of a garden, which is compounded with soil and weather and open sky. A closer smell, the smell of life contained, warm and humid and active, the smell of cellular processes and water cycling and the work of green things that are doing what green things do, regardless of where they are. The body recognizes it before the mind names it. This is happening now in every green thing on the vessel. You do not need to watch it. It is happening without you. Every leaf in the growth chambers is losing water to the air, drawing solution from the root, taking what the root absorbs and converting it to the chemistry of growth, quietly, continuously, as it has always happened, from the first leafed plants on old earth to this chamber, this tray, this leaf, suspended in its nutrient solution at a distance of several hundred light years from the soil it evolved in. The fact of growth is present. Roots are older than leaves. The first roots appeared in plants that were moving from the water environment of the ancient ocean onto the dry land surface. Organisms that needed to anchor themselves to the substrate and extract water and minerals from rock and soil, while the rest of the plant extended upward toward the light. The root was the solution to terrestrial life. Before leaves were photosynthesizing in air, before stems were lifting growth toward a sun, roots were already working in the dark, moving through soil, branching, seeking, absorbing. Soil is not passive material. Soil is a complex living system, a matrix of mineral particles of different sizes, organic material at various stages of decomposition, water held in the spaces between particles, air in other spaces, and an enormous community of organisms, bacteria, fungi, nematodes, arthropods, earthworms, and others, all of them processing the material of the soil in ways that release the mineral ions that plant roots absorb. The nutrients in soil are not sitting there ready. Many are bound in organic compounds, released only when decomposers break those compounds down. Others are held on the surfaces of clay particles and released into the soil water through chemical exchange. The fungal network in healthy soil is its own subject. Mycorrhizal fungi. Fungi that form associations with plant roots, extending the root system's effective reach by orders of magnitude through their own filaments. Bring water and phosphorus and other minerals to the root in exchange for sugars the plant produces. The plant feeds the fungi. The fungi feed the plant. This relationship predates the colonization of land by complex plants. It may have been what made terrestrial plant life possible in the first place. The root did not go into the soil alone. The root does not know any of this. The root encounters an ion in solution at its surface, and if the chemistry is right, it absorbs it. The root does not know whether that ion was released by a fungus or dissolved from a mineral particle or added by a technician with a measuring flask. The absorption is the same. The root is not choosing. The root is responding to what is present. Roots require support. They require that the world touching them contain what they need. The specific mineral ions in the right concentrations, dissolved in water that can move into the root by osmosis, with enough oxygen available at the root surface for the metabolic processes of absorption to proceed. This is the complete list. Not earth, not soil, not wilderness, support and solution and breath. Water can carry what earth once carried. Suspended in water, a root looks different. In soil, root growth is hidden. The root exists inside the medium, invisible, its form and extent guessable only by what the plant does above the surface. In a hydroponic system, roots are often visible, hanging from the base of a container into nutrient solution, or suspended in a channel through which the solution flows, or held in an inert physical support. Perlite, coconut fiber, rock wool, through which the solution circulates. When you can see hydroponic roots, they are white or pale yellow and fine. Fine enough that the individual root hairs, which extend outward from the root surface in their thousands, are too small to see individually, but give the root a slightly diffuse edge, a cloud of absorption surface surrounding the visible root. Root hairs are where the exchange actually happens. Each root hair is a single cell extended outward from the root surface. A tube 1 cell wide, a few millimeters long at most, its entire surface in contact with the surrounding medium. This is the actual absorptive surface, not the thick root you can see, but the cloud of hairs surrounding it. The total surface area represented by the root hairs of a single plant is many times the visible surface of the root. The root is designed for contact. Every extension, every branching, every hair is the plant increasing the interface between itself and the source of what it needs. In soil, root hairs push through the spaces between particles to reach the thin film of water coating them. In nutrient solution, the root hairs extend into the solution directly. The contact is complete. The solution is everywhere. Every root hair is bathed in it simultaneously. The root absorbs, not passively. Water moves into the root hair by osmosis. The concentration of dissolved material inside the root hair is higher than in the solution outside. So water moves inward across the membrane toward higher concentration without any energy expenditure by the plant. But the movement of mineral ions requires active transport. The plant uses energy to pull specific ions across the membrane against their concentration gradient. The root is not soaking. It is selecting from what the solution provides, actively pulling what it requires. In water in the right solution, the root receives what it came to soil to find. The medium changed. The requirement did not. Nutrients dissolved in water are not a simulation of soil. They are the direct form of what soil has always eventually provided. The mineral ions in soil, calcium, magnesium, iron, manganese, and the rest, are released into soil water when organic material is decomposed or when mineral particles are weathered. They travel to the root through water. The root absorbs them from water. The soil is not the source. The soil is the system that processes materials and puts them into the water the root absorbs. Hydroponics removes the intermediary and delivers the ions directly in solution formulated to contain exactly what the plant requires at the current stage of its growth. The plant receives the same ions. Each element in the solution serves the plant differently. Some build the proteins and the chlorophyll, the machinery of growth and photosynthesis. Some carry energy from one cellular process to another. Some govern the opening and closing of the stomata, the movement of sugars through the stem, the rigidity of cell walls. Some are needed in quantity, others are needed in trace amounts. And the absence of a trace amount is still an absence. The root absorbs what is in the solution, and the plant builds what the root provides. The root absorbs what is there. What is there is exactly what is needed. Growth is a response to sufficiency. When one element is missing, the plant shows it. Each deficiency has its signature in the leaves. The yellowing patterns, the stunted growth, the necrosis at the margins, and the grower reads the signature and corrects the solution. This is the other side of the directness of hydroponic nutrition. When something is wrong, the plant tells you, and you can respond. In soil, the chemistry is mediated by a complex ecosystem, and deficiency can be slow to show, slow to correct. In solution, what changes in the reservoir today changes what the root receives tomorrow. The system is responsive to management. The other direction matters too. Too much of any mineral is also visible in the plant. The symptoms different, the correction equally specific. Too much nitrogen and the plant grows rapidly but becomes soft with dense dark growth that is more vulnerable to disease. Too much of certain micronutrients and the uptake of others is blocked. Calcium competing with magnesium, iron competing with manganese, the elements interacting at the root membrane in ways that require the grower to understand not just each mineral individually, but how they behave in combination. The solution must be in balance, not just containing what the plant needs, but containing it in proportions that allow each element to be absorbed without interfering with the absorption of another. The grower learns the balance. The plant teaches it. Growth is not a wilderness. Growth is a response. The root absorbs, the stem carries, the leaf spreads. The plant does not confer with the system about what holds it. The light above the tray is not the sun. It is a specific set of wavelengths, produced by bulbs or panels, designed to deliver the portions of the visible spectrum that the photosynthetic machinery of the plant responds to most efficiently. Chlorophyll absorbs blue and red light most effectively. Green light is reflected back, which is why leaves appear green. The grow light delivers blue and red in the concentrations that support photosynthesis. The green is still reflected. The leaf remains green under the artificial light for the same reason it is green in sunlight. The plant responds to the light it receives, not to the source, not to the distance, not to the fact of a star versus a circuit. The chlorophyll molecule absorbs a photon at the right wavelength and uses its energy to drive a chemical reaction. Splitting water molecules, releasing oxygen, using the energy of the photon to begin the synthesis of sugars from carbon dioxide and water. Whether the photon originated in nuclear fusion 93 million miles away or in an electrical discharge 3 feet above the leaf, the chlorophyll makes no distinction. Some plants also respond to the duration of light, the ratio of light hours to dark hours in a day, the photoperiod. Many plants flower in response to a specific photoperiod, short days for some, long days for others, the shift in day length signaling the season and triggering the transition from vegetative growth to reproduction. In a growth chamber, the light schedule is adjustable. The grower can control the photoperiod, extending or shortening the day length to trigger or delay flowering, to manage the growth cycle, to time the production of fruit. The season is a setting. Nothing here is wild. Nothing here is dead. The enclosed growing environment is not a diminishment of growth. It is growth made available in a different context. The light is artificial, but the photosynthesis is not. The solution is formulated, but the absorption is not. The chamber is built, but the biology inside it is the same biology that grew in fields and forests and gardens. The same chemical processes, the same cellular structures, the same growth logic, responding to the same requirements because they are still the same requirements. Humidity builds inside the chamber. The stomata are releasing water vapor continuously, and in an enclosed space, that vapor accumulates if it is not managed. The air inside a productive growing chamber is warm and humid. The warmth from the lights and the biological activity of the plants, the humidity from their transpiration. The smell of it is the smell of growth contained, green, wet, warm, active, not sterile, not nothing. A space where living things are doing what living things do, indifferent to the fact that the space is manufactured. The light is artificial, the warmth is real, the growth is real. Water in a hydroponic system does not leave. There is no drainage to outside, no percolation to groundwater, no runoff. The water added to the system cycles through it continuously, from reservoir to root zone and back, carrying the dissolved nutrients, delivering them to the absorption surfaces, returning depleted, being replenished, and circulating again. Transpiration feeds the cycle from the inside. The water the plant releases from its leaves into the air of the chamber is not lost. In a managed growing environment, that vapor is captured. It condenses on cooler surfaces, the walls and the equipment and any surface cooler than the air, and the condensed water is collected and returned to the reservoir. The water the plant breathes out becomes, after collection and treatment, the water the plant's roots will absorb again. It moves through the plant and returns to the solution and is drawn up into the plant again. The same water, cycling, carrying what it carries, delivering it, returning. The system does not consume water, it circulates it. This is the logic of sufficiency in an enclosed environment. You are not in an open field where rain arrives from outside and surplus drains away, and the larger hydrological cycle replenishes what is used. You are in a closed space where what you have is what you have, where what leaves the system must be recovered and returned, where what is used by the biology must be accounted for and replaced, and where the water that was in the root is the water that was in the leaf and will be in the root again. The pH of the solution requires management. As the plants absorb specific ions from the solution, the balance of the remaining ions shifts and the acidity changes. Too acid and some minerals become unavailable for absorption even if they are present. Too alkaline and others precipitate out of solution. The grower monitors the pH and adjusts it, adding acid or base in small quantities, keeping the solution within the range where the root can absorb what the solution contains. Not a dramatic intervention, a routine. The chemistry is checked and the balance maintained, and the roots continue to absorb at the rate the plant requires. Nothing enters the system that is not used. Nothing used is discarded. The water that carries nourishment and passes through the plant and rises into the air of the chamber and condenses on a cool surface and is collected and returned. That water is still in the system. It is between cycles. It has been through the plant and will go through again. This is the closed loop that the enclosed growing environment requires. And it is, in its logic, closer to the circulatory systems of living things than to the open hydrology of a field. The water carries, the plant receives, the water returns and carries again. Tending a hydroponic system is daily, specific, and quiet. It is not the work of dramatic intervention. It is the work of monitoring and maintenance, checking solution levels, measuring nutrient concentrations, reading the electrical conductivity that tells you how much is dissolved in the water, measuring the pH, watching for the signs in the plants themselves. The plants communicate if you know how to read them. The language is slow and visual, written in the color and texture of the leaves, in the growth rate and the posture of the stems, in the appearance of the roots where you can see them. A leaf yellowing between the veins while the veins remain green, iron deficiency. Pale new growth while older leaves remain dark, nitrogen insufficient, the plant pulling what it has from its older tissues to supply the new. The tips of leaves browning, too much of something, a salt burn from a solution too concentrated, or not enough movement through the root zone to carry away the waste products of root metabolism. Roots that were white yesterday and are brown today, a sign to investigate. Oxygen deficiency in the root zone or contamination or a problem with the flow. You check the water level, you check the conductivity, you adjust, you add water if the level has dropped from plant uptake and evaporation. You add nutrient concentrate if the conductivity has fallen, the plants having absorbed more mineral than water and thinning the solution. You look at the roots if you can see them and note what you see. You look at the leaves and compare them to yesterday, not for obvious change, which rarely comes in a day, but for the slow accumulation of information that tells you whether the system is in balance or drifting. Maintenance is not lesser than nature. In an open garden, the work of tending is distributed across the environment. The rain comes or does not, the soil chemistry shifts and is amended, the light comes with the season. The gardener works within what the environment provides and corrects what the environment fails to provide. In a hydroponic system, everything the environment does in a field must be done by the system and and the person maintaining it. Nothing arrives unbidden. Every input is intentional. This is not a diminishment of care, it is the concentration of it. The plants grow because someone is paying attention, not because the system runs itself. The system requires maintenance, and the maintenance requires knowledge, and the knowledge requires the kind of attention that accumulates into expertise over time. To know what the leaves are saying, you have to have been watching them long enough to notice what healthy looks like and what changed. The plants will tell you what they need, but you have to be there to listen. Before the leaf, there was the root. A seed contains the beginning, the embryo of the plant compressed into dormancy, the stored energy of the seed's reserves. Everything the first days of growth will depend on before any leaf has opened to catch light and begin the work of photosynthesis. The seed can wait in this state indefinitely in the right conditions. Dry and cool, metabolically quiet, potentially viable for years or decades, or, in some species, far longer. The biology is paused, not ended. When a seed germinates, it absorbs water first. The dry seed swells, the outer coat softens. The embryo inside begins the metabolic processes that have been suspended. Enzymes activate, stored starches are broken down for energy, cell division resumes. The whole sequence is triggered by one thing: water at the right temperature. The seed does not detect light, it does not detect season, it detects water. And if the temperature indicates that the conditions are right, it begins. The root emerges first, not the shoot, not the first leaf, the root. A small pale protrusion pushing through the softened seed coat, bending downward in response to gravity, growing into whatever medium surrounds it. Before the plant has any relationship with light, before the first leaf has formed, the root is already working. The first act of a germinating plant is not toward the sun, it is into the medium. The root, reaching into nutrient solution for the first time, encounters the same chemistry it would encounter in a good soil environment. The same ions, in roughly the same proportions, at the concentrations the root's absorption mechanisms are built for. The root does not know it is in water. It does not know it is in a tray, in a chamber, in a vessel, in space. It encounters the chemistry and responds with absorption. The root hairs form along the extending root surface. The uptake begins. The seed reserve was always enough for this moment. The root finds the solution. The solution contains what the root needs. The plant begins. This is the beginning the body knows without thinking about it. The reach into the available medium, the response to what is found there. The root has been making this response since before there were plants as we know them. The chemistry of the response is older than seeds, older than roots. The root is the form it took when plants needed to move into a new kind of environment. And what the root does is what was always done. It extends toward the available nutrient gradient and absorbs what is there. You carry this. The biology in the growth chambers of this vessel is the biology of old Earth, growing in water instead of soil, growing as it always grew, finding what it needs, responding to what is there. A growing plant in an enclosed chamber is a thing of a particular kind. It is not wild. Wild growth happens without tending. It takes what the environment provides, adjusts to the rain and the season, fails or thrives according to conditions outside anyone's control. The plant in a tray is not wild in this sense. The conditions it grows in were designed. The nutrients in its water were measured. The light above it was scheduled. The temperature is maintained within a narrow range. But it is not a machine. The cells dividing at the growing tip, the root extending into solution, the leaf unfurling from the apical meristem, the chloroplasts moving inside their cells to optimize their orientation to the light. None of these are mechanical processes. They are biological processes, governed by the same molecular machinery, the same evolutionary history, the same genetic inheritance as everything that ever grew on the surface of old Earth. The plant does not know it is in a chamber. It does not know the light is artificial. It responds to what it receives: light, nutrients, temperature, humidity, and grows. The growth is as real as growth in a field. The leaf that forms in the growth chamber is the same leaf that would form in a garden. The same cell types, the same distribution of tissue, the same stomata on the underside in the same density, the same chloroplasts in the same cells. Not approximately. The same, because it is the same plant with the same biology producing the same structure in response to the same signals. Sufficient light, sufficient nutrition, sufficient temperature. The system is artificial. The life is not. Nothing in the hydroponic chamber is pretending to be something else. The water is water. The minerals are minerals. The light is photons in the wavelengths the plant uses. The temperature is a temperature. The life that responds to these conditions is the same life that responds to the conditions of a field. There is not a natural kind of growth and an artificial kind. There is growth, which is a response to conditions, and conditions can be made sufficient in more than one way. Nothing here is wild. Nothing here is dead. The green things in the trays are alive in the same way they would be alive anywhere. The biology does not diminish because the context is manufactured. It does not become less real because someone formulated the solution and scheduled the light. The root absorbing nutrients from the solution is doing the same thing the root absorbing nutrients from soil water does. The leaf photosynthesizing under the grow light is doing the same thing the leaf photosynthesizing under the sun does. The life continues, and the life is real. Growth does not look like anything while it's happening. The plant does not appear to move. Standing at the edge of the growing chamber, looking at a row of trays, you see the plants as they are at this moment, the same as they were an hour ago, barely different from yesterday, indistinguishable in appearance from what they will be tomorrow. Growth is not visible at human timescales. It is visible at longer timescales. The plant that was a seedling 2 weeks ago is now a foot tall. The plant that flowered last week now carries a developing fruit. But at the scale of an hour, the plant appears still. It is not still. The root tips are advancing through the solution, the cells at the growing tips dividing continuously, each new cell pushing the tip a little further, extending the reach of the root. In the shoot, cells at the growing tip are dividing and the new cells elongating and differentiating, some becoming the cells of the stem, some the cells of the next leaf, which is already forming, wrapped tightly around the growing tip, visible as a small green point if you look closely. It will unfurl in a few days. Then the next one. Growth is time made visible, not in the moment, but across time. The record of growth is in the accumulated structure of the plant. Each cell added to what was there, each new leaf the evidence of how many days of sufficient conditions have passed. Each fruit, the result of how many weeks of accumulated photosynthesis were converted into the sugars and the cell growth that built it. The plant is a record of its own history, laid down cell by cell, continuously, without pause. The stem that is 2 centimeters long today will be 3 centimeters long in a week, and you will not see it grow, and when you look again, it will have grown. Count the leaves on a mature plant, and you have a rough count of the days the plant has been growing since its first true leaves appeared. Each node carrying the record of a period of growth, each internode measuring the light and temperature and nutrition of the days that produced it. The plant that grew well has long internodes. The cells expanded fully by adequate water and nutrition, and the time to complete their growth. The plant that grew slowly has shorter spaces between its nodes. The record of the days when conditions were less than optimal, written in the structure of the stem. The plant does not forget what it experienced while it was growing. The record is in the body of it. This is patience as a physical state, not waiting, not delayed satisfaction. The ongoing accumulation of small things, each cell division adding an increment, each leaf adding a surface, each day of light adding to the reserves that will eventually support a flower and a fruit. The plants in the trays are doing this now. They will be doing it when you wake. Not all biological processes slow with the human-imposed rhythms of sleep and attention. The root continues to absorb. The cells at the growing tips continue to divide. The plant, very slowly, is building itself. Day by day, tray by tray, the accumulation of green. The food the hydroponic system produces is the same food, not approximately the same, not a nutritional equivalent or a functional substitute. The amino acids in the protein of a fruit grown in a tray are the same amino acids as the protein of the same variety grown in a field. The carbohydrates are the same carbohydrates. The vitamins, the minerals, the bioactive compounds that the body requires and uses. These are the same compounds in the same forms, because they were produced by the same biological processes, in the same cells, by the same enzymatic pathways. The nourishment is not diminished by the system that produced it. The body does not know whether the tomato came from a vine in a summer garden or from a plant in a tray in a growth chamber. The body knows the tomato. The taste is the same. The particular balance of acids and sugars, the specific volatile compounds that make the flavor, the texture of the flesh, all of them produced by the biology of the plant in the same way, regardless of whether the root was in soil or solution. The sensory experience is the same. The nutritional content is the same. Eating from a hydroponic system is not a compromise. It is the same act. The taking in of food, the nourishment of the body, the biological maintenance that continues across all the days of a life. The context changed. The food did not. The body that maintained itself on the food grown in the soil of old earth maintains itself on food grown in the trays of this vessel. Because what the body requires is present in the food, and the body receives it and uses it. Life does not ask where the nourishment comes from. It asks whether the nourishment is sufficient. If it is, life continues. If it is not, life does not. The hydroponic system provides sufficient nourishment. The body receives it. The biological processes continue. The digestion, the absorption, the distribution of compounds through the bloodstream to the cells that require them, the maintenance of the tissues, the running of the metabolism. The body that maintained itself on the food of old earth does not know it is now being maintained by food grown in the dark between stars. It receives the nutrition. It uses it. The tissues are built. The biology continues. The body does not require the food to come from the right place. It requires the food to come. Not dramatic, not remarkable. The ordinary fact of being fed, of eating from a tray instead of a garden, and sustaining the same biology in the same way across the distance between old earth and wherever this vessel is going. Life does not have a home base. This is the idea that requires sitting with, because the body resists it. Every organism alive when the voyage began had in its genome the accumulated record of billions of years of adaptation to old Earth, its gravity, its atmosphere, its particular balance of temperature and light and chemical availability. The biology was shaped by the planet. The planet was, in some sense, inside the biology. And yet, plant growing in the tray is not missing the planet. The root in the solution is not aware of the absence of soil. The leaf under the grow light is responding to the light it receives and not to the light it cannot receive. The biology is not mourning what it came from. It is responding to what is here. Water can carry what Earth once carried. The roots that grew in old Earth soil for 3 billion years crossed the dark in trays of nutrient solution, and they grew. Not adapted, they did not need to adapt. The solution contained what the soil had provided. The requirement was met in a different form, and the requirement was the only thing that mattered. The biology did not notice the transition. What the voyage carries is not old Earth. The atmosphere cannot travel. The gravity cannot travel. The hydrological cycle, the soil ecosystem, the specific light of a specific star at a specific distance. None of these crossed with the vessel. What crossed was the biology with its requirements, and the knowledge of how to meet those requirements inside a closed system. The biology that evolved in those conditions can grow in different conditions if the conditions are made sufficient. It has been growing in different conditions since the growth chambers started. The green things aboard this vessel are not exiles. They are not diminished. They are growing plants, meeting their requirements in a different medium, producing leaves and roots and flowers and fruit. Because the conditions are sufficient and the biology responds to sufficient conditions with growth. What grows here is as real as anything that grew there. The seed carries the instructions. The system provides the conditions. The biology responds. The life continues. Roots travel. The vessel carries living things. Not only the colonists in cryosleep, not only the genetic archives and the seed banks and the frozen samples of organisms that cannot travel in active form. The vessel carries things that are currently alive, currently growing, currently metabolizing, currently absorbing and transpiring and dividing and accumulating biomass. The growth chambers are running. The trays hold nutrient solution and roots. The lights are cycling on their schedules. The plants are growing now, in this hour, on this day of the voyage, at this position in the dark between old Earth and the destination. This is not incidental. The living things aboard this vessel are here because the voyage is long and the destination will require life to be established as quickly as possible on arrival. Food production must begin before the stores are depleted. Agricultural systems must be operational before the colonists are fully dependent on what can be grown locally. The knowledge of what the plants need and how to provide it must be practiced, maintained in active operation across the voyage, not left to be reconstructed from records on arrival. The hydroponic systems carry that knowledge in running form, not potential. Practice. The green things provide more than food. They produce oxygen, the byproduct of photosynthesis, released into the air of the vessel continuously, cycling through the atmospheric systems. They regulate humidity through their transpiration. They provide the particular quality of a space where something is growing, the smell of warm, active biology, the visible evidence of life that is proceeding on its own terms inside the designed conditions. This is not a small thing on a long voyage. A space where plants are growing is a space where life is present in a form that is not purely human and not purely mechanical. The green things are themselves. They are doing what they do. They require care and respond to it and grow. Life in transit is life that has not stopped. The green things in the growth chambers did not stop growing when the vessel left old Earth. They will not stop when the vessel arrives. They are growing now, during the crossing in the dark between departure and arrival. The roots are in the solution. The lights are cycling. The plants are doing what they have always done, responding to sufficient conditions with growth, not waiting to resume, not paused, continuing. Return now to the breath and the body and the green things nearby. The growing chambers are part of this vessel, the way the cryogenic systems are part of this vessel. Not auxiliary, not ornamental, not a luxury brought along for comfort. They are one of the systems that maintain life in transit. The oxygen the plants release is oxygen in the air. The food they produce will sustain the ones who are awake. The agricultural knowledge maintained in their operation will be needed on arrival. The seeds and cuttings and living populations they carry represent the beginning of the food systems of the destination world. This vessel carries life forward, not as cargo, as continuation. The roots are in the solution. The system is running. The voyage continues. The archive record for hydroponic agriculture is now complete for this transmission. Hydroponic agriculture was not a replacement for the earth. It was the demonstration that what the earth provided, the specific minerals, the water, the support, the conditions for growth, could be separated from the earth itself and provided directly. The root could not tell the difference. The plant could not tell the difference. Life responded to sufficient conditions with growth, regardless of the source of those conditions. This was always true. The soil was not special because it was natural. The soil was effective because it was a system that provided what roots needed. When that was replaced with another system that also provided what roots needed, the roots continued, the growth continued, the nourishment continued, the life continued. You are aboard a vessel with living things in its growth chambers. Those living things are growing because the conditions in the chambers are sufficient. Not because they replicate a field, not because they reproduce the complexity of the soil ecosystem, but because they provide what the biology requires in the form the biology can use. Life does not stop because Earth is absent. Life continues because someone is maintaining the conditions. The colonists who tend these systems, who check the solution and adjust the pH and read the leaves and maintain the equipment, are maintaining an old relationship in a new form, not the relationship between a farmer and a field, which depends on the specific chemistry of a specific soil in a specific climate. The relationship between a grower and a plant, which is older and simpler. You provide what the plant needs, and the plant grows. That relationship can be maintained anywhere the conditions can be made sufficient. It was maintained on old Earth in trays and chambers and rooftop gardens and climate-controlled facilities long before this voyage began. It has been maintained here, in this vessel, in transit. It will be maintained at the destination, in the first growth chambers built on the surface of a world that does not yet know it will be grown in. The roots are in the solution. The lights are cycling. The green things are growing. They will be growing when you wake. Sleep Ship Archive. Transmission complete. Vessel status stable. Cryosleep monitoring nominal. All systems nominal. Archive records sealed and filed. Voyage continues. In the chambers, the roots are still growing. Please continue restorative sleep.